Why, as a black woman, am I pressured to have a BBL? Why don't non-black women have this pressure? Who is this pressure coming from? If you want these questions answered, stay tuned. Welcome, 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 Black. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Black. I'm excited for this topic. I mean, every single topic, honestly, I'm excited for, but this one for real, you know, there's been some stuff recently. I saw this like Twitter post about like, you know, these like women in like line in a wheelchair as they were leaving. I forgot if it was like Mexico or the DR or something, because they all had like plastic surgery done. And it like went viral, and in general I've been wanting to talk about this because I think there's a lot of fetish that goes along with being a black woman and being able to have these curves and butt and all this stuff. So I'm super excited to get into this video. Now I want to be upfront about some terminology. When I say a BBL, I'm going to be talking about a Brazilian butt lift, the surgical term. So I'll get into exactly what that means later, but essentially a big butt, and I think they like take fat from like your stomach and put it in your butt. And then when I say BBW, I think that stands for big beautiful woman or something like that, but some people also say it stands for big black woman. But either way, those are just some acronyms I just wanted to get out the way. But go ahead and get comfortable. Go ahead, tell me in the comments how you're feeling as you're watching this video, because this is definitely just a topic that I think a lot of people are talking about, and I think some people have some opinions that I don't necessarily always agree with, so I want to get into it today. And in general, this video was all just about the pressure that I think black women are put under in order to have a specific kind of body type, which is a small waist, big butt, go through surgery, and various things like that. So stay tuned, go ahead and get comfortable, comment down below as you're watching the video, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and thank you so much for staying tuned. Here we go. Alright y'all, so before I get into, you know, some opinions, some problems that I see with this pressure, I want to go over some historical context. You know, we gotta keep it academic. Okay, not always academic, but you know. Okay, so in general, up until about the 90s, I would say a lot of the popular body type, body image for women, period, was just to essentially be really skinny, to have like a flat butt, maybe like have some boobs, of course, like breasts, but like have a flat stomach, maybe a little curve, but not really much curve, and just to be kind of skinny. And we see this, I mean, literally through like the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And of course, here and there's some anomalies. Like I know Marilyn Monroe was like seen as like this really big sex symbol, I think in like the 60s or whatever. And she was kind of voluptuous. She was still like smaller, but she had like the curve and things like that. And definitely people were like idolized her. But for the most part, at least for like everyday women, there was this pressure to be kind of like as slim as possible. And I would say that kind of started to shift around, I would say like throughout the 90s and early 2000s. But just wanted to have that as a preface, because I think it's really important to let everyone know, or everyone be aware, that this was a trend, that body types a lot of times are trends. So it's like what's trendy at the moment, and then things go out of trend, of course. And I also want to acknowledge that these standards that existed like before the 90s, where women, you know, were seen as like being very skinny and things like this, were definitely controlled and dominated by white women. So even though this was the standard for all women, a lot of times in like the magazines and the runway and things like that, and just like TV, it would be white women were these standards that people wanted to like achieve and like get to. Now, in terms of like, hey, there's like different kinds of standards that were popular. I did a video on like black hair, so that video I kind of go into like some of the hair standards that were like very much apparent back in this time. But of course right now I'm just talking about like body size. Now in the 1990s is where I kind of started to see, and I think a lot of people would say there was a shift that was happening, and at least for specifically black women, there was this push now to have like a bigger butt. And again, I'm not even gonna say like right at 1990, but I guess throughout the 90s into the early 2000s, there was this more of a push specifically for Black women to maybe have curves, or seeing that like a big butt wasn't as like gross or taboo as it seemed to be a lot of years before. But I say that not to necessarily say that being skinny wasn't the norm, because even when we look at popular models throughout the time, throughout the 90s, Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell, the standard was still to be skinny, and that was definitely the beauty standard. And I would say even now that's still probably the beauty standard. But at the time now we just start seeing like a bit more of appreciation for like curves that were coming about and like having a bigger butt. And again, I think that there was like a bit of a split for Black women. I would say maybe because of like hip hop and the rise of hip hop, and hip hop being like a Black male dominated like industry, and a lot of the women in the videos not necessarily looking like these like flat butt, flat stomach kind of like people, but like more like voluptuous, and that having a strong impact on Black women, absolutely. But all that to say, I think it's important that I continue to bring up like magazines and models and like famous people at the time, only because now I think there's a push for, you know, social media attention and IG models and that kind of being the standard. But at the time, of course, like, you know, there was no Instagram. So like a lot of times what people would look at were like magazines and runway shows in terms of seeing the ideal of beauty. So it's still really important to consider the fact that, you know, if there was like certain models that all looked a certain kind of way, even though now maybe folks were starting to look at like music videos and TV shows and seeing like a little bit more of a diversity in body size, just a teensy bit, that still necessarily wasn't like the only standard, but we see things opening up a little bit more specifically for Black women throughout the 90s into the early 2000s. And it's absolutely a fact that because Black women a lot of times were seen in like rap videos and stuff in this very sexy, like appealing kind of way, this did a good thing in idea at the time. It did a good thing because it was like, okay, like for some of these women maybe who were like slimmer, or, you know, just always had like a big butt or curves, maybe they were kind of told like, the big butt is not that cute, you know, get it smaller, skinnier the better. But now they're not being told that. So in that way, it's good, you know, at the time. And I can only imagine being like, hey, you know, there's somebody who has a big butt and it's being celebrated in like this music video or whatever, specifically for Black women, if that was the reality. But then it started to become another kind of monster that it is today, where now there's like this pressure for Black women to have this kind of body size and shape. So just significant to point out that, you know, while things were changing and it was like good at the time, now we see it's like almost had like a terrible effect in some ways for some people. So of course we're thinking about throughout the 90s, early 2000s. So let's go ahead and fast forward to today. So, or at least into the last maybe like, okay, 5 years, maybe 10. So unfortunately, you know, a lot of people would credit the Kardashians for at least being some of the founders of like social media being what it is today, in terms of the monster, in terms of the beauty standards, in terms of the comparing yourself to one another. I will say, you know, obviously the Kardashians had a reality show, and Kim K like began to make Instagram and her channel or her platform profile, whatever, this like big thing to showcase like outside of the reality show and the mundaneness of that, but like, look, this is what's going on in my life, this is what I'm doing, whatever. And people were being able to tune in, but also see images that she's posting, and then it just seemed to create like this monster. And of course, like, they're probably not the only reason this became a thing, but a lot of people will at least say that a lot of the, I'm not gonna say the bad things about social media she started, but I will say like a lot of the people comparing themselves in social media being like this businessy kind of like, you have to look a certain way on Instagram to be famous kind of thing, like she helped endorse, whether she wanted to or not. And now today we see social media as kind of the monster it is, as it's good, you know, for connecting people and, you know, making people, you know, see everyone and things like that. There is also this terrible aspect to it where it comes to comparing one another, to putting your body out on the line in like in a specific way in order to garner like either money, attention, publicity, and things like that. Especially because, you know, in the past, it'd be like, okay, you have to go out and buy a magazine. You know, you have to go out and either go to a runway show or find a way to watch it. Whereas now it's like everyone has a phone. Like even young kids have a phone. So literally all you have to do is pull it out and press a certain button. And now you're forced to see, you know, certain celebrities or certain influencers or certain people that you like going through a lot of changes to make their body look a certain way. But this is specifically hurting Black women in a whole nother way, because since now the general standard is to have a body that some people would say Black women naturally kind of already have, a bigger butt, maybe a slimmer waist or smaller waist. And of course that's not for every Black woman, but you know, some would say that. It's now this continued pressure to always seem to have that, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. And I will say, like, this monster, of course it wasn't just started by the Kardashians, but I think that we see too that even Black women who like are famous, we see them going through like, you know, changes first. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with this. Like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But it's like, you know, Saweetie, Cardi B talks about getting rich and, you know, changing her body and things like that. And like Nicki Minaj and all these things. And again, not to shame these women at all, like, but I'm saying that has an impact on, okay, so Saweetie was able to do it. She got a bag and she got big and she did her body, or, you know, Cardi B did whatever. Now I can too, right? Because like they might be the standards of beauty, or there are people I look up to, or there are people, and of course, like, you might not look up to them, but you know, people might, because it's like, I like their music, I like what they're doing or whatever. And when you see people consistently feeling the need to change their body in order to have this kind of success or this kind of attention, it's like, well, what is that going to make you want to do, right? So I think it's like, it's a lot, but I will say, I think in that way, social media being so public and people being able to be so candid and look at pictures of before and after has made everyday folks, even if you're famous or not, be more comfortable with thinking about the idea of changing your body, or, you know, getting the surgery, or, you know, just looking at your body and being like, well, dang, like, if I don't like it, I can just fix it, right? And the last thing I want to say in terms of this historical context is that this is the same as beauty standards have always been. Of course, it's a different standard, but just as women were dieting and, you know, working out every day and taking all these, you know, unhealthy routes probably in the 50s and 60s, is the same idea and concept as people, you know, wearing waist trainers all day, or going to get the surgery, or, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. It's just that this is just a different beauty standard. So I think a lot of times, and I'm going to get into this, but there's like a lot of shame with, like, you know, women who may have this kind of surgery, but it's like, yes, there, you know, people are going to extremes, but this has always existed. It's just, this is the extreme now. This is what people are doing. Just as people might have been, like I said, starving themselves to be super skinny, people are now doing other things to look other ways. So now what's the issue? I'm gonna just roll call off just like so many issues with this ideal, this situation that, you know, this beauty standard that we are all in. I'm gonna just roll call them out because there's just a lot. I might go into a couple, but I'm gonna just say them all just so it's documented. First off, Black women have enough to deal with. Black women have enough to deal with in this America. We do not. This is just another pressure. This is another pressure. This is another expense. This is another thing we got to think about. We just have enough to think about. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, some of these procedures are unsafe, or some of the means that people get them are unsafe. Problem number three is that a lot of people aren't able or aren't going to be able to keep up with the continued surgery that you do have to get if you do get something done on your body. It's not just a one-time thing. You have to go in every couple months or every, once a year or something like that to keep these things up. And not everyone can afford that, but thinks they might be able to. Problem number 4, trends go in and out of style. So this is the trend for now. What if the trend tomorrow it changes? Trends go in and out of style. It's not sustainable. These are unrealistic standards. Another problem, unrealistic standards. People don't naturally necessarily have a super tiny waist and a big hips. So a lot of times people might feel like they gotta kill themselves at the gym. They gotta eat terribly or have some kind of disorder or things like that. It can just breed just so much unhealthiness. Another issue, people/black women really who do not have this physique are then made to feel like there's something wrong with their body. That's terrible. And another huge issue, which I could do a whole other video on, when non-black people have this kind of body, when white women have this kind of body, when Latina women have this kind of body, whether they went through the surgery or not, they are like put on a pedestal. They're just praised by all. They're just, oh my gosh, look at her. Whereas black women are expected to have this kind of body, whatever. So that's the tea. And please go ahead and comment down below what you think about this problem, if there's any other problems that you notice. But here's what I really want to get into. And a reason that I thought about doing this video a long time ago, is what I was going to kind of talk about. There is a fetish for this kind of body. So this is just a reality. There's specific, there's different kinks. People have different, fetishes, whatever like that. But there is a fetish of this big butt, big top, big boobs or whatever, small waist and things like that. And the thing about a fetish is that it's really just based on sex. It's not necessarily based on I want you to have this body so I can get to know your personality more, or like that. Like sure, it'll definitely attract people, but usually it attracts people based on sex, based on I want to take you to the bedroom and I want to whatever, all these things to you, and that is a fetish. And everyone is different, and sometimes when people are like, maybe I want to allure people, maybe I want people to be able to see me in this kind of way, and that's fine. That's everyone's prerogative. I will say that because this kind of body type is seen as a fetish, it's like, who's it seen by fetish from? I mean, yes, maybe some women, but a lot, mainly men. So all that to say is that this beauty standard or this pressure for women to look a certain way, black women to have this kind of body, is all because of the male gaze. It's all because of the male, and not G-A-Y-S, okay? G-A-Z-E, the male gaze. And I'm not even gonna say that just because if a woman, wants to get her body done, it's not because of a man. Someone might be like, I want to get my body done just because of me. And that's fine, but the reality is like, okay, why do you feel the need to get your body done? Well, maybe it's because you don't like how it looks. Why don't you like how it looks? Because there's a lot of people who will say that that's not how a black woman's body should look. Who are those people? Usually men. Usually men, and of course other women too, but usually it's influenced by men, and of course is very, in the heteronormative sphere. I said sphere, I meant sphere. And the thing is, that's the reality, unfortunately, with a lot of these beauty standards. It's maybe not, I don't think a group of men get together every couple of years and it's like, so what do we like today? But I'm just saying that a lot of times it'll be like this collective idea of, oh, I like this, I want her to have this, I want her to have this. People hear that, people talk, and now these magazines get made, these images get popularized and various things like that. So all of this is because of men and what men want, and women feeling pressure to fit into this male idea of, I want to be desired by this man, I want to be desired by this group of men, whether people realize that or not. And I'll even say I'm even a victim of that. Sometimes I will be like, okay, well maybe I want to lose weight for me, maybe I want to lose weight for me, but it's just like, well, why do I feel the pressure, for an example, to lose weight? Or why do I feel the pressure to have my stomach be smaller? Because, you know, maybe subconsciously I just know that, okay, well, a man might like this or a man might like that. And this is unfortunately something that is apparent whether you're, you know, heterosexual or not heterosexual. Like, this is just such strong of an influence that patriarchy has, that a lot of times everyone is having to fit into what these men want, which is just sickening. So I know it got really deep, but I just wanted to really make that clear that this is all for the male gaze. Comment down below what you think, how you're feeling about this, but the fact of the matter is that the beauty industry is influenced by this what do men want, this obsession with thinking about what men want, and that's what we really need to eradicate. Now, the reason I bring this up, and I think this is such a big point, is that a lot of times, and I've seen it, people will really shame women for wanting this body type. People will really shame women for going out and getting surgeries that might be unsafe, or spending their, you know, tax money or their, you know, unemployment or whatever on getting these bodies. I literally just heard it this weekend. Like, I literally just heard this man go off about it this weekend. And it's just like, but we have to acknowledge that the issue is that this is all for the male gaze, and we have to acknowledge the fact that men perpetuate this. So I just really don't like when people like try to make women feel bad about like this standard that men set. Well, okay, I'll be more specific. I don't like when men try to make women feel bad about the standard that they set or the pressures that they put on women. It's like, what are we gonna do? So I just really want to make that clear. Comment below what you think. You know, I just think that's really what I see, and I just think we need to really push against that. And I think a way that we can push against that is for men to be a lot more inclusive vocally about, like, you know, different kinds of body sizes of women, and how like women are beautiful no matter what or whatever, especially if you are a heterosexual male who's into women and things like that. I think this is something that needs to be popularized in the media, of course, as well, and on TV and things like that. But I'll just say that I think if a lot more men, because the reality is too, like, a man is not just gonna want a woman if she has a certain body type. Like, that's also not the reality. So, but a lot of women think that. A lot of women will think like, well, if I lose a couple pounds, I'm gonna get a man, or if I get this surgery, I'm gonna attract more men, or blah, blah, blah. And that's not necessarily the truth. So I just think that a lot more men need to be vocal about, like, you know what, if she has a stomach, that's amazing. Or if she doesn't have these like these crazy curves, then, you know, like, I'm still love her or whatever, things like that, and like her for her personality. And also a lot of times that just because you're gonna go out and get this body doesn't necessarily mean that like your relationship is gonna work out. Now, I'm not even trying to shade anybody. I'm not trying to shade anybody. I know that sounded a little harsh, but I'm not even trying to be like that. But I'm just saying, like, I just think there's just this intense pressure, and there's just intense desire to like have this body for a specific reason. And I think that specific reason usually has to do with male gaze in some way or another, and we need to get rid of that. And I think a lot of men just need to do better. And yeah, so I just wanted to come to y'all with this information. You know, yeah, that's just really how it is. That's how I'm feeling. But again, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel about this. And the reality is that if a lot more men came forward and praised women for their natural bodies and things like that, a lot of these pressures would cease to exist. And maybe we'd see a lot of women, you know, not feeling the need to go out and do these things, or be, you know, desired on like a big scale. And again, not to say, again, I'm not even trying to say that if you're a woman and you do this, it's only for the male gaze. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying this standard of what our body should look like was set by the male gaze. And that's what I'm trying to, like, you know, critique. Alright, so some takeaways. I kind of really got into it, but I will say it clear so we can all have it. We need to do better overall as a society. We need to do better overall as a society. I think, you know, yeah, we just need to do do better about when we're thinking about these generations that we're raising and just people who we are as of right now and self-esteem and things like that. Like, I think a lot of people are just like, well, you know, everyone can like just do what they want. I mean, yes, everyone can do what they want, but it's just like we influence one another. So I think there needs to be more of a praise for, you know, all kinds of body types, that, you know, whether you've had surgery or not, or whether you have naturally a big butt or not, or for an example. So we just need to do better and be more inclusive as a society. That's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, I kind of would touch on it, but let's not shame people for having surgery. Let's not shame people for having surgery. Let's not shame people for, you know, if they go to the gym every single day, or if they don't go to the gym every single day, or, you know, whatever. Let's just not shame people, period. But, you know, let's not shame people who really want to have these kinds of surgeries. And if you're going to shame something, shame the reason that people may feel the need to have these surgeries in order to be popular, in order to, you know, get attention from men or from people in general, or in order to look good on stage. Like, let's critique that if we're going to do it. But no, let's not critique people and their decision to go through with this surgery or not. And takeaway number three. Look, this is for all my ladies out here, my black women, you know, for everyone, really women in general. The media is just one thing. Like, the media is just one aspect, you know. But the reality is that whatever you look like in the mirror, that's really what matters.
You're beautiful, it's true.
Whatever you're looking at in the mirror matters way more than, you know, what you see on TV or what you see on social media or what you see on your phone or something like that. Because, you know, you have to live with yourself. You have to live with your body. You have to be in this shell, and, you know, you have the power to do whatever you want with your body. But I'll just say, like, don't let this little, like, media box, you don't let this box really just, like, inform all of that. And I know it's hard to say that. Of course it's hard to say that, and it's hard to really put that into place. But I think if we start, like, saying this to ourselves, like, every day, what you see in the mirror is the most important thing. You are the most important thing. The media is going to change. Trends go out of style. In 10 years, the trend might be to be tall. So then people are going to be getting surgery to, you know, be taller. Or the trend might be to be shorter. The trend might be to, I don't know, be round or something, not an hourglass. Like, who knows? Like, I'm just saying. So, you know, it's more about you being confident in who you are and being confident with, you know, who you see in the mirror. And that's on Big Purr. Thank you so much for tuning in. I said it like a bunch of times throughout the video, but please comment below. This is such a hot topic. Like, I mean, it's not, but it can be. It really can be. So please just let me know how you're feeling in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check me out. I post every other Sunday, so you'll see me on Sunday on YouTube. Also, I'm on IGTV. My IG is at azebraa. Black knowledge is black power. We need to be, you know, responsible for one another in these streets. Black women, you're beautiful. No matter what shape, body type, whatever, we're all out here and we deserve respect and admiration. So thank y'all for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.
Put your bad self, say it loud.